Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon session for the County Council. We're going to start with a proclamation recognizing the Montgomery Village Foundation's 60th birthday by Councilmember Don Lukey. Anybody coming for that proclamation, please step forward.
Good afternoon, and it is wonderful to be here with everyone, being able to celebrate 60 years of Montgomery Village and the Montgomery Village Foundation. So I'm very grateful to have leaders from the Montgomery Village Foundation, community leaders and residents up here with me today. We actually just had a meeting upstairs before we came down to talk about things going on in the village. Since 1966, Montgomery Village has been a model of a thoughtfully planned, connected community where neighbors gather, families grow, and public spaces bring people together. And I have to give an extra shout out to their events. I represent Montgomery Village. I don't live in Montgomery Village, but boy, do I really love their events, particularly the 4th of July celebration that they have. It is highly competitive, the float contest. The families are super, super into that, and I love it. And my extra special favorite, and now that other of my colleagues have come to do it too, the Great Pumpkin Race in the fall. So it's a little premature for me to figure out what I'm doing for this fall yet, but I will be there, and I welcome everyone to come join. You do not have to be a Montgomery Village resident to decorate and race a pumpkin. Just want to say that, and certainly come out and cheer on the other competitors. It brings people from far and wide, and it is super cool. So I just want to say that on behalf of the County Council, we're so happy and grateful to have you here and celebrate the good work that you do and the community building that you do in Montgomery Village, and to celebrate this milestone. 60 years, I think it seemed like a new community not that long ago, and 60 years goes by really fast. So here we are, and happy to have you here. I want to take time to let everyone introduce themselves, and then I will turn it over to Mike Conroy to speak.
Hi, I'm Mike Conroy. I'm the Executive Vice President of Montgomery Village Foundation.
Danielle Ayers, President, Montgomery Village Foundation Board of Directors.
Daniel Anderson, just a board member for the Montgomery Village Foundation Board of Directors.
Duncan Mullis, Director of Recreation and Parks.
Dee Worth, Director of Architectural Standards.
Ruth Stadius, Director of Communications.
Karen Kajanian, Assistant Executive Vice President.
Adam Polsky, General Counsel.
And there's no Justa. I just want to say there's no Justa. With that, I want to turn it over to Mike Conroy to speak.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Council President Fanny Gonzalez, Council members, and especially Councilmember Lukey for inviting us here today for this special occasion. In the 1960s, there were three brothers who conceptualized this new way of living that brought people together, gave them a place to live, to work, and to play. They sought to bring a new life to a new town, a community, a place that they felt was home. After acquiring a number of farms in the upper part of Montgomery County, the brothers started to plan out this idea. And they eventually found themselves here, or well, in what were the council chambers back then, in front of all of your predecessors, advocating for their dream and explaining an alternate zoning mechanism, the town sector zone, that got complicated quick, that would allow them to accomplish this massive undertaking. With the support of the county, the Kettler brothers set shovels in the ground almost 60 years ago to the day, February 28th, 1966, and embarked on a decades-long development project that would change Upper Montgomery County, extend the European concept of a planned community, and help establish the homeowners association model in the region and beyond. This new town, as they called it, incorporated varied housing styles, creatively generated new ways to group homes together, and provided future residents with a community to thrive in. When they said planned community, they meant it. Every aspect, every detail, down to planting mature trees in every yard, was a calculated move. When they had the chance, the Kettlers sparked innovation and embraced technology. They purchased construction machines that no one else had, and then lent them to the White House for special projects. They built the first all-electric community in the area. They turned 2,500 acres of farmland into a proud community of 40,000 residents. And they lived by their motto: don't simply build on the land, improve upon it. In addition to housing, the Kettlers built community facilities and retail centers. They donated land for religious institutions and worked with the county to incorporate schools within the village. They truly wanted Montgomery Village to be the place where residents could do it all. Over the last 60 years, Montgomery Village has flourished, retaining parkland, wildlife habitats, green space, and tree canopy. The community has provided many families with their first home, has served as their hometown that accommodates their family growth, has welcomed back residents who grew up there, moved away, and then returned to raise their own families. Montgomery Village proudly embraces the diversity of our residents, and for 60 years has been an example of how a unique idea can become truly a special place to call home. I'd like to invite our board president, Danielle Ayers, to give a little bit more about the community.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, council members. Along with the physical presence of this new town concept, the Kettler brothers also established the Montgomery Village Foundation to govern the day-to-day operations of the community. At first, it was a mechanism to set up and manage each community as it was built, but it quickly evolved into the entity that also provided services to the community. Through MVF, the Kettlers assigned architectural control duties, management services, general governance, and recreational amenities. Montgomery Village Foundation and its volunteer-led board of directors is charged with promoting the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Montgomery Village. Through engagement, active participation, and community input, MVF continues the Kettlers' legacy of improving upon the land. This can be seen in physical spaces, diverse amenities, including pickleball, basketball, and hard court soccer courts, a cricket pitch, a multi-golf course, an outdoor fitness park, a dog park, playgrounds, ball fields, reimagined community pools, over 330 acres of parkland, community walking trails, and more. But it also comes to life through community living, family activities, classes, camps, and events, recognizing neighbors on daily walks, residents who have proudly called the village home for 30, 40, or 50 years, and the hundreds of volunteers who dedicate their time on boards and committees to maintain the Kettler brothers' dream. Montgomery Village residents have always been the how and the why that MVF exists, and our residents remain at the forefront of decisions made to enhance the community. They care deeply about the village and its special place in Montgomery County history. As our recently adopted community statement proclaims, Montgomery Village is a lively Maryland suburb of Washington, D.C., housing more than 40,000 active residents from different racial, cultural, ethnic, religious, and socioeconomic backgrounds. We encourage all residents to stay connected by participating in our community events and cultural initiatives, while promoting health and wellness through our recreation activities. By valuing our differences, we foster mutual respect, understanding, and collaboration, so that Montgomery Village remains a thriving and inclusive environment for the many families and individuals who choose to call Montgomery Village home. As a community, we thank you for the support you show Montgomery Village, for your participation in our community events, and for listening to our residents who proudly advocate on our behalf. We look forward to continued partnership on initiatives that keep Montgomery Village moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. And with that, I will read the proclamation. Whereas Montgomery Village was established in 1966 as one of the nation's early planned communities thoughtfully designed to bring together residential neighborhoods, green spaces, commercial centers, and community amenities in a cohesive and inclusive environment, and Whereas for 60 years, Montgomery Village has played a vital role in fostering a vibrant, welcoming, and connected community for Montgomery County residents, and whereas since its founding in 1966, the Montgomery Village Foundation has been dedicated to enhancing the quality of life for all who call Montgomery Village home by providing thoughtful stewardship of community spaces, programs, and services, and whereas through its commitment to maintaining beautiful common areas, supporting recreational opportunities, and hosting events that bring neighbors together, the Montgomery Village Foundation has helped shape a strong sense of belonging and civic pride. And whereas the foundation's staff, board members, and volunteers, past and present, have demonstrated extraordinary dedication to preserving the vision of Montgomery Village as a diverse, inclusive, and thriving community. And whereas the 60th anniversary of Montgomery Village marks not only a celebration of the community's history, but also a recognition of the Montgomery Village Foundation's continued leadership in building community, supporting families, and enriching the lives of thousands of Montgomery County residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland hereby celebrates the 60th anniversary of Montgomery Village and recognizes the Montgomery Village Foundation for its 6 decades of dedicated stewardship, community building, and service to residents. And be it further resolved that we extend our sincere appreciation to the Foundation staff, board members, and volunteers, past and present, for their lasting contributions to the strength, vibrancy, and quality of life of the Montgomery Village community and Montgomery County. Presented on this 24th day of February in the year 2026 by myself, Councilmember Dawn Lutke, and Council President Natalie Fanny Gonzalez.
Thank you so much for coming. I look forward to the farmer's market. Good to see you. So we're going to move forward. Agenda item 4 is a public hearing on Bill 4-26, Buildings Task Force on Data Centers established. This bill will establish a task force to study the potential risks and benefits of data centers in the county. Require the task force to produce a report that identifies the impacts of data centers and evaluates the feasibility of potential legislative, policy, or zoning changes, and generally amend the law regarding data centers in the county. A joint Economic Development and Transportation and Environment Committee work session is scheduled for March 9, 2026. Those wishing to speak to submit material for the council's consideration should do so by the close of business on March 2nd, 2026. As a reminder of our public hearings testimony guidelines, your comments must be limited to issues relevant to the public hearing topic for which you are testifying and are appropriate for a public meeting. You will hear a tone when your time is up, and we appreciate everyone abiding by their allotted time. I also would like to say that there are a few people coming in to speak on ZTA 26-01, which restricts the use of data centers in the county. So those folks who are going to speak for both issues, they're going to have 5 minutes. If you're only speaking for one, which is the one coming up, you're only speaking for 3. And I'm very, very strict with time. I'm just going to say that to you. So with that, we're going to ask the first panel to move forward. We're going to have Mr. Prabhu Selvan, Karen Metches, Roberta Steinman, Stephanie McNicholas, Douglas Sickling, and Olivia Burlingame. If you can please move forward. And let's see. And we're gonna start with Bravo. If you can please start, turn on your mic. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Council President. As a candidate for County Council at large, I am concerned about how we plan our future in Montgomery County with regard to data centers. Inside Montgomery County's approach to data center development lies both the potential for significant harm and major opportunity. That's exactly why we need a dedicated task force to strike the right balance. What are the potential costs of data center development? Disruption to the fragile Potomac River ecosystem, a 25 to 70% increase in residential energy bills, and a 300 megawatt facility like the Dickerson proposal produces the same greenhouse gas emissions as 150,000 gasoline-powered cars every year. Because most of the electricity on the PJM grid still comes from fossil fuels. So why do we feel the pressure to move forward without a working group? That is also understandable. Our private sector growth has been stagnant for years, and we're now facing major federal funding cuts. We are staring at an $850 million budget shortfall over the coming years. So we want to eliminate bureaucracy and capture the potential revenue right now. But what are we leaving on the table? A large data center, the size of the Dickerson proposal, generates over $1 billion annually for the company, while county real estate and personal property taxes would only give back tens of millions to the county. Maryland grants a sales and use tax exemption to data centers. A single large facility requires billions of dollars in equipment to construct. That's a huge savings for them. Montgomery County only collects income taxes paid by employees. And even a large data center, based on a Virginia study from 2023, will only hire 50 or so full-time staff. So, data centers are getting a sweet deal. Why not strategically harness this opportunity to advance our long-term energy, climate, and economic goals? Let's give this working group a mandate. Require data centers to fund renewable energy infrastructure that offsets 80% of their energy use. And require data centers to support small business grants and contribute meaningfully to our green bank. The state's data center report is due in September, but it's likely to set broad guidelines and a low bar, as state policies tend to do. We cannot outsource Montgomery County's long-term strategy. Baltimore County, PG County, and Loudoun County, Virginia, all had to backtrack, creating working groups and new guardrails after widespread development began because of unintended impacts. Let's not repeat that mistake. We can't just rely on their reports either, because Montgomery County is not like other counties. We have the largest population in Maryland. We share nearly a 40-mile stretch of the Potomac River. We have the highest cost of living, and our working families have less tolerance for energy bill increases. And we have a climate action plan to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2035, 10 years ahead of both PG County and Frederick County's plans. We are not the same. We are a national leader in climate and energy policy. Many have discussed having a moratorium. If we're going to have a pause, let's use that time productively. Let's use this opportunity to define how Montgomery County can be aggressively pro-business and pro-environment at the same time, and have this serve as a framework for how we manage other industries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Karen Mechis. You have 5 minutes. Yes, you do. Turn on your, because you signed up for both.
Okay, I'm speaking for one group on one and two groups on the other, so I still have to do
No,
both.
you'll have 5 minutes only
Okay, let's try to combine
for the
them.
two issues, yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so for Bill 426, I'm testifying on behalf of the Climate Coalition Montgomery County as well as the Sierra Club of Montgomery County. But on ZTA 2601, I'm only speaking for the Sierra Club. There are many unanswered questions that need to be addressed before 2601 is adopted and before any data center project is approved for development. We're in favor of Bill 426 establishing a data center task force with amendments, two of which I'll state here and the others in my written comments. First, the composition of the task force must be fair and balanced. As written, it leans heavily on industry. It needs fewer industry-related members, more members representing both environmental and consumer protection advocates, and a neutral party who understands how to evaluate the true costs and benefits of data centers. Second, we ask that the bill be amended to establish a moratorium on development of data centers until the Maryland's task force report is completed, along with the report proposed by this bill. This would allow recommendations to be put into effect by law and regulation before development proceeds. All right. Data centers and AI are among the most consequential for our time. Montgomery County has the power and potential to thoughtfully introduce data centers so their benefits outweigh their costs. History offers useful lessons. Automobiles and plastics delivered real benefits, but regulation lagged at adoption, leading to negative health, community, and environmental consequences that last for decades. Similarly, data centers represent a disruptive technological and societal change. To their credit, they may facilitate computation, especially for high-end work such as the medical field, but they also consume enormous quantities of energy, straining the electric grid and our natural resources with both global and local negative consequences. So as far as ZTA 2601 goes, we urge consideration of the following. Bring your own renewable energy generation should be a functional requirement, and it should not drive electricity demand beyond supply, not increase reliance on fossil fuels, including for backup generation, not divert renewable energy from existing and future county users, and not drive up the cost of electricity for county residents. Second, regulate with both zoning and progressive pricing policy. Enormously profitable data centers require only limited workforces, so their main contribution to the county will be fiscal. Exceptionally large power consumers should be taxed progressively on their demand, with higher rates for both higher wattage consumption and for peak demand periods. Revenues should be used to fund renewable energy programs throughout the county. Third, apply the precautionary principle. A moratorium is appropriate until all costs and benefits are considered. Address the multiplicity of public concern about energy, water, health, local impacts, and more. Please take the time needed to build public trust before passing ZTA 2601. Please issue a moratorium on data center development until the two studies have been completed and fully vetted and the subsequent ZTA is passed. Furthermore, the fact that we have two bills before council on 426 and 2601, one going to PHB, the other to the T&E and Economics Committee, shows that there are a lot of factors to be considered. We have to make sure that the public understands the process and gets answers to our questions and concerns. Although there's pressure to move forward on Atmosphere LLC's application for 5 hyperscale data centers, not just one, at the Dickerson site, a pause is needed to figure out what is best for the residents of Montgomery County. And let's not play with semantics. Call it a pause, call it a moratorium, call it what you will, but please slow down this process. If everyone wants to do the right thing, including Terra and Atmosphere, who claim that they are the greenest data center in the world despite not having built any yet, why the pushback? The right thing requires fairness and transparency to the public.
Provisions must be put in place to ensure net zero greenhouse gas emissions, to comply with the Climate Action Plan, to protect the public from skyrocketing energy rates, to protect our fragile water supply, and to protect our health. So please, we ask you to take these two bills together seriously. We're not saying don't build any data centers. We're asking for transparency and time to fully consider.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Roberta Steinman.
I have 5 minutes.
Yes, you do.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Archie Steinman. I support Bill 426 to create a temporary, well-balanced 15-member data center task force to complete a thorough study of the impact of data centers on the environment, health, energy demand, and racial equity and social justice in the county. I also support the high bar that Prabhu was talking about for standards for a complete and thorough study. It's premature to consider ZTA 2601 prior to the findings of the task force. That would be putting the cart before the horse. Critical data center impacts on the environment, the community, and the built infrastructure need to be clearly understood and resolved before Montgomery County approves any data centers. Additionally, given the sheer number and interwoven complexity of data center and AI issues, we need a moratorium on permitting any large or medium-sized data centers in Montgomery County pending the development from a regulatory framework that will protect our forests, farmlands, waters, air, residential communities, and curb the rising utility rates. County executives in both Frederick and Prince George's counties have issued temporary holds on data centers, and there are ongoing discussions at the state level regarding a moratorium on the construction of new data centers in Maryland, pending a Maryland General Assembly study. I want to focus on one key issue that this task force will need to address: water. Data centers consume extremely large quantities of water, which threatens our water supply in many ways. Droughts. Ongoing droughts are already leading to water shortages and or reduced availability of piped water, surface water, and underground aquifers, and more droughts are predicted. As of late January 2026, Montgomery County is experiencing significant drought conditions following one of the driest years on record for this state. Cumulative impacts. The cumulative impact on the water supply of many data centers operating simultaneously is enormous. For example, the vast majority of the nearly 370 operational data centers in Northern Virginia are located within the Potomac River watershed and draw water from the Potomac River Basin, directly competing with residential and agricultural water needs. This is putting immense pressure on regional water supplies and increasing risks of shortages and potentially impacting regional water security. Evaporation and contamination. 50 to 80% of the water withdrawn by data centers for cooling purposes is consumed through evaporation and thus is not returned to the surface water source. The remainder is contaminated wastewater. Water used in data center cooling systems, whether open or closed loop systems, becomes contaminated with various toxins that are harmful to the environment when discharged. And thermal pollution. Data centers discharge water at temperatures higher than the source water, resulting in thermal pollution which harms local aquatic ecosystems. Data centers' use of raw water from rivers and streams must be strictly regulated and prescribed in times of severe drought. Use of potable water for cooling purposes should never be permitted. Under no circumstances should data centers be permitted to use groundwater aquifers. Montgomery County needs to enact a moratorium on all data center projects until we develop a regulatory framework that will protect our forests, farmlands, water, air, communities, and curb the rising utility rates. Wisdom, restraint, and an earth-centric perspective are required if we are to live well in our communities and care for each other and the land, water, and air that are the foundations of life for all of us, including the other species we live with in this shared space. At the highest level of concern, we have to ask ourselves whether the environmental, economic, and societal costs are worth risking for a world dominated by AI. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Stephanie McNicholas. Can you please turn on your mic? It's in front of you. There you go. Thank you. I have 5 minutes as well.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie, and after 57 years in Rockville, you have stolen my home. Since December 23rd, 2024, I've been under sustained physical assault in my own sanctuary. This council has allowed industrial-scale subwoofers to be anchored into our bedrock, effectively seizing my property without a warrant. I am here today to create a permanent record of my displacement. I am being forced to flee my home because this council failed to protect my health. You didn't just break a noise ordinance, you broke the social contract. You are hiding this assault behind the DBA scale. DBA is a filter that mutes low-frequency sound to protect the industry, not the people. While your official meters read a quiet 29 dBA, the raw energy, the DBZ, is hitting 45. That is 40 times more physical energy vibrating my walls and my brain than your scales admit. You are using DBA scale as a legal cover for a monster. While your meters stay silent, our foundations are screaming. This is biological warfare. Medical science confirms the PM 2.5 pollution from these industrial sites is a direct cause of Alzheimer's. These particles bypass the lungs and rust our gray matter from the inside out. You are bringing brain decay into our bedrooms. Combined with infrasound that thickens heart tissue, you are trading our memories and our heartbeats for server uptime. The environment you've built is toxic to human life. Look at the map. You have trapped College Gardens in a triangle of terror. You've created an acoustic dump site where noise reflects and amplifies in a canyon effect. Why here? Because you've built a golden dome of protection around the elite in Potomac and Bethesda while steering this filth into our diverse communities. This is a textbook definition of environmental racism. You've traded our health for tax revenue from billionaire tech bros who wouldn't live within 10 miles of these machines. I am leaving, but I am demanding a correction before you destroy every other family in that circle. You have planned. I demand mandatory Z-weighted testing. Stop the cover-up. Health impact studies on PM 2.5 and infrasound immediately. An immediate moratorium on any unit anchored into bedrock without total seismic isolation. You are elected to represent the people, not the processors. You stole my home, but you will not steal my voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Douglas Sigling.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Doug Siglin. I'm a volunteer with the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, and I'm speaking here today on behalf of CCAN's 5,000 members in Montgomery County. My focus today is on clean energy. Let me be clear. You should pass the glass bill, but only after requiring the task force to report out on how new data centers will affect the county's climate goals and suggest solutions. You should pass the ZTA, but only after adding a provision requiring data centers over a certain de minimis size to use all, or at least mostly, clean energy. Here's why. In 2017, this council declared a climate emergency and mobilization. An extensive process produced the Climate Action Plan that's committed to zero greenhouse gas emissions in the county by 2035. Today, we're roughly at about 8 million tons a year of carbon pollution as far as we can tell. I'm sure you all know about the proposal for the 300 megawatt hyperscale data center at Dickerson. You may not know that it plans to draw all of its electricity from the grid. It only takes a minute to do the calculations on how much emissions that's going to produce. at least 1 million tons annually, and probably more. That is 1/8 or maybe 1/7 of all the emissions that are being produced in Montgomery County today by over 1 million citizens. Think of what that graph looks like. Instead of a line gently going downhill towards zero emissions by 2035, the line shoots up. And in Silver Spring, there's another data center, modest today, but plans to expand to 100 megawatts. If that data center comes online and is approved, that line shoots up even higher. So the solution is obvious. The ZTA must ensure that large data centers in the county directly use clean energy, or at least indirectly offset what they use. Now, some might argue that energy is outside the ZTA's scope. However, a carefully drawn amendment to protect county and state climate policy and commitments and protect its residents from the harmful effects of this uniquely intensive land use is appropriate and likely to be legally defensible. You're going to hear from Mr. Harris a little bit later. I'll tell you the Montgomery County Planning Board appears to agree with what I just said. It formally advised you in its February 17th report, and I quote, "Require standards addressing energy usage, including a finding that data center development will not impair the county and state climate goals, utilizing carbon usage effectiveness ratio as a benchmark, and offsetting data center operational electricity demand through on-site renewable energy generation, storage, or procurement," unquote. Mike Tidwell and I recently met with the leadership teams of Terra Energy and Atmosphere who are developing the Dickerson site. They say they want to do the right thing for clean energy, but despite our repeated requests, they decline to make any kind of commitment to any level of clean energy supply. Apparently their business model or their budget doesn't allow for it. And I tell you, it's not impossible. Google has signed at least 170 power purchase agreements for more than 22 gigawatts of clean energy for its data centers. But if Dickerson proceeds as planned, this one project will blow up all your climate goals, giving you a very stark policy choice to make. Several people today are asking you for a pause. We think that's right. Data centers may be inevitable, but they're coming at us way too fast. Currently, you and 1 million other Montgomery County residents are being asked to bear extraordinary costs so that a few may benefit from data centers. That's not worth the extra revenue. So today we're asking you to show the nation that Montgomery County is willing to not only welcome large data centers, that further the county's climate policy and protect its residents. Simply, if data centers can't be built yet to use clean energy, they shouldn't be built yet.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we have Ms. Olivia.
Good afternoon, council members and council president. Thank you for holding this meeting on what we already know is becoming an increasingly important topic that will have lasting impacts for our kids and families all throughout the county. My name is Olivia Burlingame, and I'm here to speak to the zoning text amendment and the data center task force issue. I'm a parent of 3, a former high school teacher, and a concerned member of the Silver Spring community. My family has lived in the area since my now college kid was a kindergartner, and I grew up in the state. When it comes to data centers in Montgomery County, we have to take our time and appreciate the lessons learned from other communities around the country. Yes, we're different, but we're also the same. These communities have come to know what a data center means in real life, whether it's in their backyard, down the block, or at the other end of their county. Because now, all over the country, data centers are being fast-tracked with limited oversight. First and foremost, I want us to remember that not all novice technologies should be engaged with just because they are the new shiny big thing that big tech wants us to adopt. Remember when cell phones were not in the classroom? Ask any teacher how helpful they've been, and they can give you that dirty laundry list. Well, data centers are the next new big thing. But what I as a mother look at is how supportive this is of the rights and needs of families like mine and my neighbors. What do we actually need and what have we asked for? Unlike the companies pushing this on us as a direct result of the federal AI action plan, I'm asking, what problems are these data centers really going to solve for us? I'm talking about everyday families who are raising kids, are at home with our parents that we now take care of, or helping out with our extended families. So I want to first be clear about where this big push is coming from. I don't need a data center to support AI being used as a supposed safety and security tool in my kid's high school, for example. Nor do I need AI health diagnostics that have been proven to be highly inaccurate. What I'm getting at is there a real need being addressed by new data center construction and infrastructure in our county? I don't think so. Nevertheless, I support the zoning text amendment ZTA proposal because we do need strong regulation and siting parameters for data centers to ensure they are only in industrial zones if they get pushed through. This will help us safeguard our families to some extent and limit some amounts of harm to us, the environment, and our overall public health. But that is not where we should stop because it is not adequate. Let's remember what communities with data centers have already taught us, and I want to be clear that I'm not just talking about the hyperscale ones, but all of them. What we know is that despite what these industries tell you, data centers don't bring lasting jobs, nor do most short-term jobs, which are mostly during the construction phase, going to community members. We know that utility rates go up. Essentially, they put the cost on us. They drain our energy and water at a time when the UN has even declared our global water supply is going bankrupt, and we are at the point of no return. This is the context we're dealing with. With such huge stakes on the line, we must be very careful with intention and attention to detail. We must regulate data centers to industrial zones while also ensuring that a robust study of the costs and benefits to communities is carried out. This must be done with strong community engagement and leadership from the get-go. And that means having many community members sitting on the task force, and they must represent frontline communities and work on environmental justice issues. So I support the ZTA with an amendment that calls for a moratorium on data centers right now while transparent and comprehensive study through the task force is conducted. We must ensure that we get this right and don't sacrifice our community's public health and well-being in the meantime. Through the task force study, we should glean key insights and gather recommendations for all key stakeholders to consider, including everyday community members and families. And one of them might very well be that data center development is not the way forward for Montgomery County, and that in fact, we need a moratorium. In short, the ZTA and task force proposals are not mutually exclusive. We should and must do both to protect our communities right now to ensure we head down the more just path for our families and community members. Let's keep our kids and their future families in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call on the next panel. Thank you so much for coming today. I have here Beth Landry, Sarah Savage, Josh Markowitz, John Heislet. I'm sorry for that. Should I say that one wrong? Marcia Mnas and Basap Sen. So for Miss Beth, you have 5 minutes. Everybody else has 3 minutes. So go ahead, please, if you're ready.
Good afternoon, Council President Fanny Gonzalez, Vice President Belcom, and Council members. My name is Beth Landry, and I am Chesapeake Climate Action Network Action Fund's Central Maryland Coordinator. I'm grateful to be here today and have the opportunity to speak both on ZTA 26-01 as well as Bill 4-26. For both of these, our position is favorable with amendments. We know that Montgomery County is a climate leader, and we thank you for the opportunity to provide input before hyperscale data centers come into the county. Right now, Maryland families face some of the highest electricity costs in the nation, and these costs keep climbing. The rapid development of data centers connected to our PJM grid has already raised costs to ratepayers by $9.4 billion as these power-hungry centers force costly infrastructure upgrades and strain capacity. Maryland families deserve real solutions that give us control over our energy future, not just more expensive bills. CCAN believes that the data center build-out must be sustainable, transparent, and take into account community input, even further so than today. They must come online at a pace where they can meet their energy demands with 100% clean energy, and language must be incorporated into the ZTA reflecting this as a use standard. We can do this through a mix of on-site clean energy generation, as well as off-site generation from clean sources, such as through power purchase agreements and renewable energy credits. We were encouraged by previously circulated policy guidelines, including maximizing clean energy. It's essential that we not only maximize, but require data centers to use 100% clean energy to meet their electricity needs. It's imperative that Montgomery County and the state require data centers also to source their clean energy, to prevent compromising local and state climate goals. Not doing so directly threatens our nation's and our region's climate commitments, as was previously stated. Furthermore, please amend Bill 4-26 regarding implementation of a task force on data centers to require the task force to report on how new data centers will affect the county's climate goals and propose appropriate new policies. In addition, Montgomery County should set both an energy efficiency and water efficiency minimum. Finally, we urge the requirement of improved and routine reporting on the amount of energy and water the data centers use. We are ready to build a system that protects ratepayers while moving forward with clean energy, which is the quickest and cheapest to deploy, will not threaten our climate, and is the best option going forward to allow our communities to not only live and be healthy, but to thrive and have the highest quality of life. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next, Sarah Savage.
Good afternoon, and thank you for hearing my testimony today in favor of Bill 4-2. My name is Sarah Savage, and I'm a Montgomery County resident and owner of WP Concierge, a business based here in the county. I believe I'm also the only technology company represented here today. Like many residents of Montgomery County, I'm deeply concerned with rising energy prices and environmental impact. Stories like the one from Memphis, where Elon Musk is polluting a local black community to power his Grok AI, hit us hard. The desire to ensure this never happens in our community is strong and well placed. I want to explain why I support this bill over the alternatives. The truth is that data centers do not come in one size or shape, they come in many. Different workloads, from AI computations to web hosting, depend on data centers with very different capabilities. I understand there's a desire to regulate all data centers, and I'm concerned that this would be akin to regulating a convenience store and a Costco with the same blunt instrument. I believe that the establishment of a commission staffed by experts will lead to better, more durable, and equitable regulation. I understand and share the concern of my fellow citizens when it comes to energy prices, and I pay them too. I believe that data centers should pay their fair share for electricity and grid infrastructure. I also know that data centers are one of the most significant investors in renewable energy precisely because energy is their biggest cost. I believe that studying the issue and shaping regulations which ensure data centers pay their fair share will produce significantly better outcomes for all Montgomery County residents. The truth is that data centers are not going anywhere. They exist among us most of the time unnoticed, and yet we depend on them every day to process our transactions, power hospitals and schools, support local businesses, and connect us with those we love. My clients depend on data centers for me to run my business. Montgomery County's own Green Bank depends on our responsible use of data center resources for its web presence, and we're proud to be their hosting provider. Data centers that are closer to where we live offer lower response times and improve reliability for everyone. I encourage the Council to engage in thoughtful study of regulations that permit but oversee carefully data center placement in the county to ensure that we can better balance our modern way of life with the interests of all residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Josh Markowitz. Is he here? Josh? No? Okay. All right, next, John Heisel. You have 3 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, you pronounced it correctly. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is John Heisel. I'm in support of Bill 426 to establish a task force on data centers. My wife and I have resided in Bethesda and now Chevy Chase for 43 years. We raised and educated our 4 children in Montgomery County schools. I'm retired from the U.S. Public Health Service, where I managed large primary health care programs designed to keep persons across our nation healthy, especially those residing in underserved areas. I'm active in the Catholic Archdiocese Creation Care team and lead our large Catholic parish Green team, following Pope Francis's mandate to care for Mother Earth, our common home, in all we do and how we live. I'm currently volunteering with Interfaith Power and Light to help promote wise climate policies across the DMV. Together with my fellow climate advocates, I have studied the issues around data centers and have tremendous concerns about their location in Montgomery County without major review and study. The faith communities I belong to are energized and motivated to make sure residents' wise hearts, not artificial intelligence, guide our decision-making about data centers in the county. While the promised tax revenue from data centers is a golden carrot, it often comes with unintended or hidden costs to a county and its residents. It is crucial, therefore, to carefully study and review the impacts of data centers in the county so we do not make the same mistakes made by our neighbors across the river. Data centers consume a huge amount of electricity to operate. Heightened demand for electricity may require that less efficient and more polluting power plants will remain online, and heightened demand with limited energy generating supply usually means higher prices for consumers. Data centers need to have their own electricity generating capacity using renewable energy and batteries, not diesel generators. Data centers use a huge amount of fresh water to cool their computers. Data center demands for water must be evaluated in the light of county consumers' need for fresh water. Any data center water use plan must be thoroughly reviewed, especially in light of potential droughts occurring by climate change.
Thank you for your time, sir. You can submit the rest of your testimony. Okay?
Thank you.
Next, Marcia Nass. Can you please turn it on? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this opportunity to speak with you regarding the proposed zoning amendment. This amendment is premature. It would allow any data center to be built no matter the amount of emissions or water usage. Regulations written by experts in the field, including engineering, environmental studies, public health, and the like, are necessary prior to adding an additional type of industrial use to the county zoning. For example, millions of dollars are spent in Montgomery County on medical issues arising from the pollution from the North Virginia data centers. We maybe could prevent more medical problems if public health experts are involved in crafting the regulations. It looks like Atmosphere is simply a land speculator. They bought their property knowing that the zoning did not cover data centers. They received a capital infusion in 2025 from a private equity firm to enable them to develop their ideas and technology. Having a moratorium on zoning until regulations are drafted and approved is not changing the course in the middle of the stream or being unfair to the developers. Atmosphere is pursuing this at risk without zoning provisions covering their proposed use. They had to know that regulations would be developed to cover a new land use that has public health and environmental consequences. We should look at Atmosphere's website claims. 100% renewable energy, water-free, refrigerant-free cooling, 99.9% emissions reduction, and 50% lower use of energy. However, Atmosphere has not built even one data center meeting those claims. Let's have regulations that include these as performance standards. Then the community would support it. Atmosphere needs to show publicly the technology that they are using to meet the representations in their website, or cite the own patents and licensed patents being used to be able to operate a data center, meaning their representations. As with other industries, if they don't meet their regulatory standards, data centers should have to cease operations until they meet the regulatory standards. No zoning amendment is appropriate without prior regulations which protect the community from toxic emissions, excessive noise, pollution to our sole source aquifer if there is a breakdown, as well as proper protection for the Potomac River. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Basap Sen?
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to testify on Bill 426, Task Force on Data Centers. My name is Basaf Sen. I'm a resident of Silver Spring, and I'm the Climate Policy Director at the Institute for Policy Studies. We are members of the Climate Justice Alliance, a nationwide alliance of nearly 100 organizations on the front lines of the climate and toxic pollution crises. The data center boom is causing serious detrimental impacts nationwide. First, the massive energy consumption of data centers is leading to skyrocketing utility bills. The Union of Concerned Scientists found that residential customers in Maryland alone paid an additional $107.5 million to subsidize data center electricity demand in 2024. This is unacceptable. Working families who are struggling to pay their bills should not be forced to subsidize the bills of big corporations. Second, the data center boom threatens to reverse progress on cutting greenhouse gas emissions. The global scientific consensus is unequivocal. It is imperative to cut greenhouse gas emissions rapidly for a livable future for humanity. But data centers in the US obtain much of their electricity from gas-burning power plants and have even caused coal plants that are about to retire to stay open past their retirement date. Greenhouse gas emissions from data centers could triple by 2035. Third, the increase in fossil fuel power generation because of electricity demand from data centers causes increased levels of toxic pollutants such as particulate matter and nitrogen oxides. And given the long-standing pattern of locating polluting infrastructure in Black, brown, and economically disadvantaged communities, data center pollution can be a serious environmental justice issue. And it's important to remember that some of this pollution comes on-site from data centers from their backup diesel generators. For all of these reasons, Montgomery County should not rush into permitting data center construction. A task force to study the costs and benefits of data centers is a sensible proposal. I strongly recommend two amendments. One, that the bill be amended to require robust community consultation to ensure that the concerns of potentially impacted community members are incorporated into the report. And second, that the mandate for the task force be clarified to include the possibility of a final report that finds data centers to be altogether against the public interest.
Thank you. Great timing. Next, thank you so much for coming. Next panel is Jessica Chiao, Madison Matthews, and Joel Novi. And the three of you have 3 minutes each. We're going to start with Miss Jessica. Can you please turn on your mic? It's right there. There you go.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Shao. I'm a resident of Silver Spring. I've lived in Glenmont, Rockville, downtown Silver Spring over the years. I'm here in support of a transparent data center task force with multiple and multilingual opportunities for community members to offer meaningful input. I'm also in favor of a full pause on data center development, at least until after the findings and recommendations of the task force are reviewed by the council, including a pause on the development at the Dickerson Power Plant, which aims to use the water from the Potomac, which is already an overstressed river, just hit downstream with what is reportedly becoming the largest wastewater spill ever nationally. I also recommend the task force mandate and make explicit the possibility that the report may recommend no data centers at all. And that would be an appropriate conclusion to follow, with Montgomery County at the lead of reimagining economic development that aligns with responsible stewardship. Saw this language held in false dichotomy in a press release about the zoning text amendment, and these two things don't have to be at odds. All data centers consume a lot of water. This has been widely reported and studied, and the UN just announced last month that the global water crisis has become a global water bankruptcy. These are not just words, they have scientific definitions. Water bankruptcy is defined by insolvency and irreversibility. Insolvency means withdrawing and polluting water beyond renewable inflows and safe depletion limits. Irreversibility refers to damage to key parts of water-related natural capital like wetlands and lakes that makes restoration to initial conditions infeasible. We must fiercely protect water. Data centers, whether hyperscale or not, have disproportionate impacts on Black and brown folks and rural folks. I've visited that Northern Virginia stretch of data centers. It's super bleak. I've been to the Tippets Hill Cemetery, a historically Black cemetery, now a small triangle of land between two data centers. That's the one that still exists, but two in Brentsville, Virginia have been irreversibly damaged by Microsoft. I've visited Boxtown, Memphis, where Musk's XAI facility is currently spewing carcinogens into the air, where he intends to build a second one. Residents there bear cumulative burdens of multiple polluting industries and are accustomed to knowing family members who have passed away early from cancer. Data centers are making money for tech billionaires while we subsidize them. My own one-bedroom bill was $123 last month, with the thermostat at a reasonable 70 degrees. In DC, residential electricity costs have gone up 93% in 5 years, while commercial users have only seen rates rise 3%. PJM's $5 billion build-out of transmission lines, mostly for data centers, is being paid for by residents in Maryland and Virginia. I worry about county residents who are like my parents, immigrants who have made their entire lives here in the U.S. for whom English is not their first language, who are swayed by economic arguments and quite frankly don't see how they can stop any of this. That's why it's important to have local governments that are leaderful and visionary, that aren't buying into the sales pitches of inevitability and getting taken advantage of. Montgomery County can be ambitious in imagining the new. How do we build economic prosperity while divesting from that which kills us? How do we build community wealth without being a part of a manufactured economics arm race with no lasting benefits? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Madison Matthews.
Hi, I'm Madison. I was born and raised in Montgomery County, and my family has lived on these lands for generations. We were brought here during slavery and continue to live here through this day to live and fight for a better future. I come today on behalf of those who aren't able to share their voice, on behalf of freedom fighters who have shared their voice and have paved the way before me. I come on behalf of those who know we cannot put profit over people. Putting these data centers in Montgomery County is putting profit over people, and it will hurt us. And by us, I do mean all of us in this room, as well as our future children. There is no way our fresh drinking water will run through these data processing centers and come out just as clean as it was before. And the evidence shows it. Have you taken the time to see what is happening in Memphis, Tennessee, or Mansfield, Virginia, Georgia? These are communities that live near large data centers. Their clean water is being used at a faster rate than it is being replenished, and their clean water is running out. People have to buy bottled water at the store because there's none coming from their taps. With these data centers, not only will our clean drinking water diminish, but the water running through these dirty machines and dumped back into the Potomac is not water that we want or deserve to drink. In terms of public health, the pollution from gas turbines in Memphis and Mansfield, Georgia, that keep these data centers running is severely worsening respiratory issues in the area. Reports from Memphis and Mansfield show a peak in nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, and carbon dioxide in the air, which is severely worsening health conditions like asthma. 10% renewable energy to power this proposed data center in Montgomery County is not enough. At the proposed 10% renewable energy rate, we will be significantly increasing the amount of nitrogen dioxide and monoxide in our air. If it's not 100% renewable energy in Montgomery County, we do not want it. No amount of money generated from this data center should be able to persuade you, our local government, to risk our health, safety, and our futures. Not only will this data center increase the toxicity in our air, make electric bills go up, and diminish or deplete the quality of our drinking water, but the residents of Montgomery County get nothing in return from this monster being built into our community. Will we get better jobs? Will we get more affordable housing? Will we get financial security from the government? I don't think so. The people of Montgomery County do not benefit from this data center. Only the people who benefit from this are the billionaires behind these data centers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Novi. Yes. Can you please turn on your mic? It's right there. You go.
Good afternoon. It's great to see all of the council members and to see Councilmember Jawando, who was a little surprised to see me as the guest preacher at the church he attended on Sunday morning. It was great. I'm Joelle Novi with Interfaith Power and Light, working with congregations of all faith traditions across the county, taking action on climate change together. And I'm joined by the previous testifier, the Ignatian volunteer, John Heisel, who's a parishioner of Holy Trinity Catholic Church. I live in Silver Spring, and John lives in Bethesda. We are working with congregations across the county that are very concerned about the environmental and health impacts of data centers, and part of our concern is driven by having learned from our neighbors in Northern Virginia and watched what's happened in other counties of Maryland. I share and stand in solidarity with the many, many community voices you've heard today expressing concern about the environmental and health impacts of these facilities, but I want to just take a step back and focus on big picture, the importance of community voices. In our Jewish communities, in which I participate, this time of year, we're reading the story of the building of the tabernacle in Exodus, and it instructs that only the wise-hearted people should be building things. And that is the most fundamental message that I want to bring from Interfaith Power and Light and all of our congregations to this process, that human beings, real sacred wisdom, folks with wise hearts should be driving the conversation, all of these conversations about data centers, not artificial intelligence and not corporate interests. We do support a task force, but we feel that it's not sufficient to have a task force unless it is absolutely guaranteed that the heart and soul of that task force are community voices, the voices of those most impacted by these facilities. We have learned in Prince George's County that it's not sufficient to have a task force if you don't guarantee that that task force is fundamentally voices that are accountable to the communities that they serve. And we stand ready to be one of many grassroots organizations that can help populate any such task force with voices from the communities that are going to be most impacted and make sure that wise hearts prevail in this conversation.
Thank you so much to the three speakers. Now we're going to move to virtual speakers. Thank you for coming. The first one, virtual, we only have 4. The first person has 5 minutes. The other 3 only have 3. And the first one is Ms. Theodora Escarato. I hope I said that one right.
Thank you. Theodora Escarato on behalf of the West Montgomery County Citizens Association, WMCCA. And we work to protect the Potomac River and the environmental integrity of the Potomac subregion by limiting environmentally disruptive infrastructure expansion, reducing stormwater runoff, tree loss, and protecting water quality and environmental health. ZTAA 2601 and Bill 426 are inadequate and lack the rigorous safeguards. The Council must first invoke a moratorium on all data center development in order to develop enforceable protections and full transparency. We have an opportunity to ensure Montgomery County is a leader in ensuring economic development does not come at the expense of our environment, air quality, water resources, our residents' health, and the environment. So first, ZTAA's 2601's grouping of data centers with communication facilities is absolutely inadequate because it ignores the significant cumulative impacts of this industry. Data centers should have their own classification as an industrial use. Data centers should follow the process as a conditional use in the heavy industrial zone, not in light or moderate industrial zones, which are expressly intended for uses with minimal impacts. Data centers are industrial scale facilities that can produce significant noise, vibration, environmental effects, more aligned with heavy industrial zone definition. The third thing is that ZTA 2601 sidesteps the critical issues of water, power, and inadequately addresses a whole slew of other environmental impacts. Protecting water quality must be central to this issue and into any policy that is enacted, because the facilities as described, so I won't go into detail, but they do increase impermeable surface runoff. They concentrate toxic contaminants in the water, all of which can impact the Potomac watershed and environmental health as detailed previously. So I'm going to focus on a few other things, hearing all of the excellent speakers here. The data centers require substantial electrical grid expansion, new substations, new high voltage transmission lines, and related infrastructure to meet the massive energy demands. These upgrades are not isolated to the project site. They extend into surrounding communities across various communities. And the financial burden is borne by ratepayers via increased electricity costs, electrical transmission corridor expansion, cutting through communities with these lines, noise, visual impacts, property value loss, and so forth. But the ZTA does not require adequate disclosure of the total demand for power, the transmission build out, the ratepayer cost analysis, or other environmental issues such as noise and EMFs. The 500-foot setback is wholly inadequate. While robust long-term research is needed on the human health and environmental impacts, we have an avalanche of reports from communities nationwide reporting serious adverse effects, including increased miscarriages and rare cancers, the requirement to, quote, minimize noise levels to the extent practical just fails to protect residents and wildlife, particularly in light of the documented reports of persistent low-frequency hums detectable more than 2.5 miles away from the data center. In addition, there are emissions that can be in the subaudible range, infrasound frequencies, which are not adequately addressed by conventional noise standards, as they only focus on human audible noise. Noise pollution is linked to a range of health impacts, including sleep disturbances, cardiovascular effects. Mechanical noise also disrupts wildlife, interfering with communication, navigation, reproduction, and can be especially harmful to pollinators. So what about the EMF exposure from electrical infrastructure that is needed to serve the facility? The International Agency for Research on Cancer classified EMF magnetic fields as a possible human carcinogen in 2001 based on links to childhood leukemia from power line residential exposure. Now, additional studies have reported associations with adult cancers, sleep disruption, Alzheimer's, and numerous other effects. Kaiser Permanente research found that prenatal exposure was associated with increased spirit risk.
Thank you so much for your testimony. You can submit the rest. Okay, that was 5 minutes. We're going to go next with Mr. Edward Maybach. Is he on? Uh-oh, Chief. He's on, right? He's on. Mr. Edward, if you can hear me, you can unmute. There you are. Uh-oh, I can hear you. Are you muted? Is he muted? Oh, we cannot hear you, sir. Can you try again? Uh-oh. If not, we can go to the next person while you work on your tech. Mr. Greg Smith. Is he on? Yeah. Mr. Smith.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, we hear you. We hear you. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
I'm trying to turn on my video. And Madam President, if I may I expand my testimony to include the ZTA as well?
Not at this time, but you can submit your testimony in writing. You have 3 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll do my best. I'm Greg Smith. I've been engaged in the data center debate in Prince George's County since the fall of 2024, when I worked with other civic and environmental advocates to stop legislation that would have wiped out the last remaining land use review required for data centers. Since then, I'm engaged in discussions with advocates in the county, in Prince George's County and several other counties. I grew up in Montgomery County and I worked on a range of environmental issues there from 1990 to 2009 or so. In April 2025, I joined other community leaders in raising concerns about the task force proposed through Council Resolution 16-2025. The proposed membership was biased and lacking critical expertise and perspective. The scope of work was inadequate and off point, and the timeline was far too tight to deliver the kind of study and recommendations the public needed and deserved. To some degree, your resolution avoids those mistakes. Unfortunately, all of our concerns proved to be valid. Even worse and incredibly, the consultant the county hired to facilitate the task force process and draft the task force report had a clear conflict of interest. Gensler is a multinational architecture firm that profits from designing data centers. That task force never heard from an environmental or public health expert, and the report is utterly devoid of any analysis of data center serious impacts and serious recommendations to avoid, minimize, or mitigate those impacts. So this January, roughly 30 community organizations wrote to Executive Brave Boy and the council, urging them to commission a robust, transparent study, ban data centers as a by right use in any zone, and extend county moratoria on data center plans and permits until the county has enacted and is prepared to enforce laws to protect the public and the environment from data center impacts. Here are a few common sense suggestions. Impose a hard moratorium on the acceptance, review, and approval of data center plans and permits. Keep it in place until the county has enacted and is fully prepared to enforce meaningful protection. Treat data centers, especially large and hyper-scale data centers, as what they are. Heavy industrial uses often being built and operated by some of the wealthiest individuals and corporations in the state, in the U.S., and on the planet. Parties that routinely do everything they can to bias and weaken public interest law and pay as little as possible in taxes. Don't give tax breaks or financial incentives to data center owners or operators. Assess the direct, indirect, and cumulative impacts of individual projects and countywide build-out. Aim to avoid, minimize, and mitigate all impacts inimical to the public interest. Treat impacts holistically. For example, understand the full net impacts of tax revenues and impacts on ratepayers, taxpayers, grid capacity, and stability, and how those impacts distribute within the community. Who profits, who pays, and in what ways. Don't ignore the environmental and public health costs. How much does an asthma attack, a stroke, or a heart attack triggered by air pollution cost in all terms? Amend CB 4 2026 to address global heating and climate chaos and require data centers to be carbon negative. Carbon emissions and atmospheric concentrations are rising.
Thank you, sir.
That's my 3 minutes.
Yes, that's it. You can send your testimony, okay? Thank you for your time.
Okay,
we're gonna go back to Mr. Edward Maybach and see if we're lucky now.
Thank you. Can you
there
hear me
you
now?
go. We hear you. 3 minutes. Go
Excellent.
ahead.
Thank you for your forbearance earlier. My name is Ed Maybach. I'm a public health professional, an emeritus professor at George Mason University, an elected member of the U.S. National Academy of Medicine, and a longtime resident of Montgomery County. I'm testifying today in support of Councilman Glass Bill 426 to create a task force to study the implications of data centers, including their public health implications, which is the focus of my testimony. My testimony is based on a paper that two colleagues of mine at George Mason and I published earlier this month in a peer-reviewed journal called Frontiers in Climate. I've submitted a copy of that paper to Mr. Glass's office so that he and all of the council members can consider the findings in detail. But in brief, our paper is a first of its kind assessment of the potential health implications associated with data centers. Very little original research has been conducted on this topic, but by using various sources of data, we concluded that data centers likely do pose a range of significant public health risks. These risks come from a variety of sources, including air pollution, excessive water use and water pollution, noise pollution, land use practices that can disrupt both natural ecosystems as well as community well-being. In addition, we concluded that rising energy costs from data centers can reduce household income. Every public health professional knows that household income is an important social determinant of health. Increased utility bills can therefore undermine health in a variety of ways, especially for low and middle income families. In our paper, we offered several recommendations to reduce these risks. Firstly, data centers should be powered by renewable energy. End of story. Secondly, strict regulations should be implemented to minimize water consumption and water pollution. Thirdly, acoustic treatments and green zoning should be required to reduce noise pollution. Fourthly, zoning regulations and site selection decisions should be made to curb adverse land use impacts. Fifthly, data center operators should bear the full cost of their energy production and transmission needs. And finally, health professionals from the community should be involved in informing the public of these potential health risks, and policymakers should invite them to advise them on policy decisions. I thank you very much for allowing me to share my perspectives as a public health professional and a community resident on these important decisions that you are making.
Thank you so much. Finally, we have Ms. Jacqueline Saunier. She's on. We don't see you.
Hello.
Hello. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm here. Hi, yes. I'm Jacqueline Saunier. I am coming on behalf of Sunrise DC, which is a local chapter of a national youth movement. We are fighting to mitigate climate change, the climate crisis, and fight for a better future. And our group also consists of many like DMV residents, including residents in Montgomery County, such as myself. Our position is that we are opposed to the creation of a data center task force in Montgomery County because we are opposed to the consideration of the expansion of data centers in our county, given how they currently operate. In addition, reading through like the bill for 26, it looks like there's a lot of interest in data centers that are specifically for cloud storage, for artificial intelligence, and these uses that the data centers would be supporting, or it appears that expansion of data centers would be supporting in Montgomery County, are very damaging, not only in terms of that they require much more energy resources, so they're going to be producing or requiring more fossil fuel use, generation that is poisoning our air, heating our planet. It's a major issue that we're already not appropriately addressing. And in addition to that, we don't know, or there's the question of how these AI technologies are going to be used. Are they going to be supporting the military-industrial complex? Are they going to be supporting businesses like Amazon that are promoting like high consumerism and further destruction of our planet and off of the backs of working class people? And I also wanted to highlight that we should also be considering how our existing infrastructure isn't properly being taken care of. There's the very major issue of the pipeline burst that spilled nearly 300 million gallons of raw sewage into the Potomac. And expanding data centers is going to further tax our existing infrastructure, water infrastructure, electricity infrastructure that's clearly not properly being taken care of at this time and is further putting human and non-human life in danger. So those are some considerations that we'd like this panel to have in mind when thinking about putting together this task force and what that would mean. Thank you.
Thank you. This public hearing is now closed. Thank you everyone for coming. Next is agenda item 5. It's a public hearing on zoning text amendment 26-01, Commercial Uses Data Center. The ZTA will define data center as a new use subject to zoning requirements, specify the zones where data centers may locate in the county as conditional uses, establish minimum standards for the location of data centers in the county, and generally amend the law regarding permissible locations and conditions for data centers in the county. A Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee work session will be scheduled for a later date. Those wishing to submit material for the council's consideration should do so by the close of business on March 5th, 2026. As a reminder of our public hearing testimony guidelines, your comments must be limited to issues relevant to the public hearing topic for which you are testifying and are appropriate for a public meeting. You will hear a tone when your time is up, and we appreciate everyone abiding by their allocated time. Everybody who's coming for the ZTA is only going to have 3 minutes. I'm going to start with Ms. Sarah Kogos-Smucker. Can you please come forward? Mr. Artie Harris, Ms. Wan Song, and if the translator can please come forward too and sit next to her. Carl Helmed, Calvin Crishfield, and Angie McCarthy. So we're going to start with Ms. Sarah representing the county executive. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. My name is Sarah Kogel-Smucker, Climate Change Officer, testifying on behalf of County Executive Elrich. And I want to thank the Council President, Vice President, Council Member Sales, and all Council members and staff for collaboration on this issue. And also thank the many stakeholders and residents who provided input on the draft data center county executive legislative and policy recommendations and are continuing to be engaged in this issue, including coming here today. With rising electric costs, strains on our water supply, the acceleration of climate change, tight local budgets, we need to do data centers right. We can act as a national model, and we need to get this right the first time. The county executive supports this ZTA as an appropriate starting point and offers comments both on what's addressed in the ZTA and what should be added as companion legislation that travels in tandem. So first, in terms of what's addressed in the ZTA, for the definition of data center, the county executive supports having a specific definition of data center and makes 2 recommendations. One is to narrow the definition so it does not unintentionally include uses such as a corporate server room in an office building or a telecom switch room. And then second, consider planning department's recommendation that the code further define data center based on size. That's also was mentioned in previous testimony. In terms of use standards, we strongly support the ZTAs requiring all data centers to undertake the conditional use process and recommend developing more specific criteria to guide the hearing examiner, the addition of green design standards, heat mitigation building standards, and requirements for monitoring and reporting on those criteria. The county executive supports the ZTA's landscape lighting and buffer standards and recommends adding lighting criteria to the lighting criteria, reducing negative impacts to human health and quality of life. For noise standards, we recommend amending the county's noise code as needed to address low-frequency noise. That's something that came out previously in testimony too. And for generators, in addition to the Tier 4 requirement of the ZTA, the county executive prefers the inclusion of long-duration energy storage. Now, what should be added? Clean energy requirements. We should not pass data center legislation without addressing clean energy generation, strains on the electric grid, capacity demands, and the very real public health and environmental concerns of diesel generators. Ideally, state, regional, and federal policy would effectively address these energy issues, but given the current regulatory environment, we can't rely on it. We also need to address water quality protection to 1, encourage and incentivize best-in-class water efficiency, performance, and approaches and reporting. 2, prohibit siting of data centers within watersheds containing use class 3 or 4 streams. These are cold water habitat. We'll provide more information on that in written comments. And require stormwater management plans for data centers. County staff looks forward to working with council staff to provide more details. And as mentioned, if the council needs more time to develop policy, the county executive is open to an up to 6-month moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We look forward to working with you. Mr. Artie Harris.
Yes. Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Artie Harris, Chair of the Montgomery County Planning Board, Council President Fanny Gonzalez, and members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to share a few brief remarks on ZTA 2601. These remarks will highlight the Planning Board's written transmittal sent to the County Council on February 17th. The Board reviewed ZTA 2601 on February 12th. In addition to some suggested technical amendments noted in our written comments, we have some additional areas for the Council's consideration. First, we recommend that the ZTA clarifies that no additional restrictions are imposed on privately owned, self-contained data center-like facilities, those used within the facilities of a professional, scientific, or research company for internal use only. Second, consider developing sub-definitions that differentiate data centers based on size and intensity of use to account for already smaller data centers in the county and potential future development of data centers at other scales. We'd also note that most current data centers are not located on industrial zoned land. Therefore, we also recommend expanding the conditional use allowance to enable these sites to continue operating. We also had the opportunity to review the climate assessment. We recommend the Council consider 3 recommendations to counter potential negative impacts, including standards addressing energy usage, heat mitigation, and limiting the use of potable water. Additional details on these recommendations are in our written comments. We look forward to working with the PHP committee and the full council as the ZTA moves forward through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Won Sung, please read your testimony and then we'll have the translation, okay? Go ahead. Can you please turn on the mic? Can you tell her, please? There you go. It's on. No, yeah, don't touch it. There you go. Thank you. Go ahead.
존경하는 의장님, 의원님, 시민 여러분. 저는 오늘 카운티가 추진 중인 데이터 센터 규제 강화안 26-1에 대해 심각한 우려를 표하고자 이 자리에서 발언드립니다. 저는 몽고메리 카운티에서 40년 동안 거주해 오면서 이 지역 사회의 막대한 성장과 발전을 봐왔습니다. 저는 이 부근에서 불과 멀지 않은 곳에 50에이커가 넘는 농장 소유주입니다. 제 땅은 이미 펩코 측에서 1952년과 57년 2차례에 걸쳐서 이즈먼트가 설정되어서 지금은 고전압 송전선이 곧바로 변전소로 이어지며 한쪽으로는 방송국의 넓은 부지 안에 거대한 안테나들이 세워져 있는 광통신망이 흐르는 정중앙안에 마치 고립된 섬처럼 농업으로는 제 가치를 이미 상실했고 산업적 특수 인프라의 최적지이지요. 웨스무어는 재작년에 메릴랜드를 데이터 센터 허브로 만들기 위해 규제 완화 법안에 서명했습니다. 농업 보호 구역이라도 핵심 기반 시설 특수 인프라 있는 곳은 조건부 승인으로 허용한다는 35-A 섹터가 있지요. 지도상에 연한 녹색으로 처리해져 있지만 이미 70년 전부터 국가산업부지가 점령해버린 이런 농지는 규제 대상이 아닌 정부가 이미 인정한 법률 조항 안에서 조화를 이루어내면서도 고부가 가치를 제공할 특수부지로 선택된다면 이는 카운티에 막대한 세수를 걷어들일 것입니다. 이미 태양광 업자들이 제 땅의 전력 용량 5만 킬로와트를 누리고 달려들고 있습니다. 오해 없이 들어주시면 감사하겠어요. 정부는 데이터 센터 허용하고 카운티는 규제하려 들지만 마땅한 부지는 찾기 힘들고 규제는 강화되고 저희 땅에 이미 오래전부터 특수기반 시설이 모두 갖췄는데 1980년대에 오래된 행정적 법규안에 묶여서 제 기능을 상실한 땅이지만 산업적 특수 인프라를 갖춘 토지는 이번 기회에 적응 대상으로 검토해 주시길 제안드리는 바입니다. 이 자리에 저와 같은 토지주와 이해 관계자분들이 계시다면 언제든 열린 마음으로 기꺼이 대화하는데 협조해 줄 것입니다. 끝까지 들어주셔서 대단히 감사합니다.
I am speaking today to express my serious concerns regarding the county's proposed data center regulatory strengthening ZTA 26-01. I have lived in Montgomery County for 40 years and have witnessed the significant growth and development of our local community. I am one of the property owners of more than 50 acres located not far from here.
The land was acquired in two transactions in 1952 and 57. My land is already surrounded by Pepco transmission lines installed in 1952 and 57. Over time, easements were established, and the property is now permanently surrounded by high-voltage transmission lines and substations. Massive transmission towers stand across the center of the land, making it resemble an isolated island. As agricultural land, it has already lost its value. However, it is an optimal site for a specialized industrial infrastructure. Last year, Governor Wes Moore signed legislation to make Maryland a hub for data centers by easing regulations. Even within agricultural preservation zones, there is a Section 352A, which allows conditional approval for critical infrastructure and specialized industrial facilities. Although this area is marked light green on the map, it has effectively been occupied by national industrial facilities for over 70 years. If this land, already recognized within the legal framework established by the government, can be selected as a specialized site that harmonizes with existing laws while providing high added value, it would generate substantial tax revenue for the county. I would appreciate it if you would listen without misunderstanding. While the state permits the data centers, the county is moving to tighten regulations. As regulations become stricter, it becomes increasingly difficult to find suitable sites. My land has outdated administrative regulations in 1980 and lost its original function. I respectfully request that it be reviewed as a potential candidate site for a specialized industrial infrastructure under the current policy direction. If there are other landowners or stakeholders here today with similar concerns, I am always open and willing to engage in a constructive dialogue.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, Carl Helt.
Council President Fanny Gonzalez, Council Vice President Malcolm, and fellow council members, thank you for the opportunity to testify on ZTA 2601. My name is Carl Held, and I am testifying on behalf of the Climate Coalition Montgomery County, made up of 20 local climate and environmental advocacy groups. In Montgomery County, the proposed Terra Energy Data Center project in Dickerson is heightening awareness of the need to figure out how we should proceed with the development of a large hyperscale data center campus. Further analysis is needed to ensure that we do this in the right way. We recommend that a pause be taken in approving ZTA 2601 to ensure full public participation, including the completion of a task force study under the proposed Bill 4-26, as well as a state-level data center study due this fall. This can be accomplished, in addition, with amending Bill 426 with a temporary moratorium on all data center development pending the study results. Recommendations from these studies can be used to develop a fully informed regulatory framework appropriate for Montgomery County that can be used to modify and expand the proposed ZTA use standards in Section 3.5.2. Here are just two of the concerns that need attention. First, Amexworks LLC, the developer of 5 of the proposed data centers in Dickerson, submitted a permit to withdraw up to 2 million gallons of water per day from the Potomac River. How will this affect our water quality and our quantity of use for the county residents? Secondly, the proposed energy power consumption of this project could be greater than 1 gigawatt, equivalent to all the power used by Montgomery County residents overall. So how is this energy going to be produced, and where is it going to come from? At the Data Center Forum on February 3rd, residents raised some thoughtful questions. Themes that emerged include whether the financial benefits attributable to hosting data centers were real and outweighed the harms to the environment, and whether they would cause middle and lower income residents especially to shoulder increased energy prices. Residents called for a deliberate, transparent process. The climate assessment for ZTA 2601 correctly states that data centers will have a quote, major negative impact on greenhouse gas emissions associated with electricity usage. The ZTA should require data centers to bring their own renewable energy and address the potential increase in greenhouse gas emissions that make it very challenging to achieve our own climate action plan. And now, a moratorium is even more important since Atmosphere has stated that they anticipate acceptance of their updated conditional use approval by the hearing examiner within the next 2 months. So let me just summarize. We need to pause on ZTA 2601 and wait until the studies are completed under Bill 4-26
Thank
with
you.
a moratorium.
Thank you so much. Next, Calvin Crisfield.
Good afternoon, County Council. Thank you for providing the opportunity to support the zoning text amendment. My name is Calvin Crisfield, and I'm testifying on behalf of Nature Forward, the oldest independent environmental organization in the DC metro area. While we acknowledge that data centers serve the needs of modern society, we are extremely concerned with the land, water, energy, health, and community impacts of unchecked data center growth. We commend the offices of Council President Fanny Gonzalez, Vice President Balcom, and Council Member Sales for tackling this issue head-on, and we strongly urge the Council to support the ZTA with a few amendments to make it as strong as possible. Firstly, the Council should adopt FERC's definition of a data center, which has an energy demand of greater than 20 megawatts. Adopting this definition at every level of government would help with standardization of policies across jurisdictions. Secondly, the Council should clarify the terms of the 500-foot setbacks. It's currently unclear if those setbacks would be measured from the property line or from diesel generators. We suggest that the setbacks should be measured so that residents and businesses are as far away as possible from polluting equipment. Finally, the Council should not permit any diesel backup generators, even Tier 4. Diesel generators of any kind have negative impacts on air quality and public health and have been associated with respiratory illnesses and cancer. Montgomery County is also already socializing the healthcare costs of Northern Virginia's data center diesel generators, and building more would only make this burden worse. Battery storage and carbon-free backup generation are viable alternatives to diesel generators that have been successfully implemented in other areas and should be implemented instead of diesel. You can find more details in my written testimony for Nature Forward. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you vote favorably for this bill and for our suggested amendments.
Thank you. Next, Angie McCarthy.
Good afternoon and Ramadan Mubarak to those celebrating. I'm Angie McCarthy, and in addition to being the Maryland Conservation Advocate for Nature Forward, I'm also the co-chair of Marylanders for Data Center Reform, the first statewide coalition focused on responsible and transparent data center policy. Thank you to the bill sponsors for your effort on the ZTA. When I testify in other locales, I'm often fighting for the repeal of by right zoning or to ensure that data centers are not built within a mile of metro centers. That is not the case here in Montgomery County, but I would be remiss to not urge for amendments to make this the strongest ZTA possible. I echo my colleague Calvin's previous sentiments and the testimony submitted by Nature Forward, but wanted to provide more context regarding the use of diesel generators as a backup. According to a 2025 public health focused study, Montgomery County and our taxpayers are already on the hook for nearly $20 million in public health costs associated with the running of backup generation in Virginia. Of course, these costs are disproportionately impacting our underinsured and our under-resourced residents by a rate of 200 times. This problem will only worsen and is expected to hit $20 billion in 2028 for the region surrounding Northern Virginia. While we cannot change Northern Virginia's current backup power model, we can choose to stop exacerbating the problem for both ourselves and those who live upwind of us. By not allowing diesel generation, we are not closing the door on the economic development that data centers might bring. The Duke study on load shifting, previous examples of data centers utilizing battery storage to get online faster, load shedding technology present in other states like Texas, and future build-out of carbon-free energy shows us that there is a different path. I urge Montgomery County to be a trailblazer of that path. By pushing data center developers to invest in our grid capacity, build out our carbon-free energy infrastructure, and to protect ratepayers by thinking creatively of how to avoid diesel generation. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to future discussions.
Thank you to the panel. We're going to go to the next one. Sebastian Stiefel, Ellen Gordon, Scott Wallace, Richard Toms, Bob Cecil, Ling Howing, Gary McKee, Kelly Schultz. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. You can sit anywhere. And we're going to start with Sebastian. I don't know. Is Sebastian here? Sebastian is not here, right? No. Okay, next. We're going to go with Ellen Gordon. Ms. Gordon, there you go. Thank you.
First, I want to thank the council for finally recognizing that it's not appropriate to leave data centers in the zoning category of cable communication systems. But that shouldn't create a false sense of urgency to promulgate these zoning and regulatory changes. Right now, I think we're all in a position of really not knowing what we don't know. ZTA 2601 has good pieces in it, but it's incomplete, and we need time and unbiased expertise to do this right. So I ask that you declare a moratorium while that process unfolds. The differences in scales of data centers are huge, and that's not recognized. The reference to existing maximum decibel levels for sound limits is irrelevant because the low frequency sound levels that data centers emit need to be held to a different standard. You've already heard people talk about there are studies about deleterious neurologic and cardiac impacts on people. The extra setbacks that are suggested or required in the ZTA, are they enough for low frequency noise? I also think that if there is additional setback needed, it should include the AR because just noise carries a lot further in the ag reserve. We know that there are health impacts on people, but are there studies on livestock and wildlife, how they're impacted? Although the current proposal for a data center or data centers in Dickerson would not use groundwater, we need to codify the prohibition of the use of groundwater in an area for which it's the sole source of drinking water. They are talking about Potomac River water for cooling, and they make a lot of persuasive arguments about how they'd be better than the previous coal plant, but the coal plant was built in a different climate 70 years ago, so it's kind of irrelevant. What about, we need a thoughtful analysis of our ability to meet our county's climate commitments based on the enormous amount of energy these use before we encourage building them. I'm really concerned about the type of work for which the data centers are built. There's a lot of surveillance of communities going on by current federal government, and is that really what we want to encourage in our county? Atmosphere calls there's a working data center, so I've heard, but what does that mean? Does the developer get to define what that means? How will the county enforce any standards it sets for data centers? Will there be inspections? What about all the electronic equipment that's changed out every 3 to 5 years? Does that go in our waste stream? Does it get recycled? Can we require that it get recycled? Tech bros proselytize about a future with AI everywhere. Real estate developers with vested interests greenwash the development of these campuses, and hedge fund managers pursue them for their investment returns. That's quite a force arrayed against your constituents. I am certain that despite their nice words, they are not concerned about your residents, about our drinking water supply, or about our electric rates. Only you and we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Scott Wallace.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott Wallace with Miles and Stockbridge, and I represent Atmosphere DC. Atmosphere is the contract purchaser and developer of a data center campus on approximately 110 acres of industrially zoned land in Dickerson. Atmosphere generally supports the stringent standards proposed in the ZTA to address the impact of data centers. We also support the recommendation of the Planning Board to consider making certain standards more objective. We do request the Council consider amending the ZTA to allow metal fences for data center properties that do not front on public roads such as the Dickerson site. Metal fences are necessary to secure data centers and the sensitive information they store. A metal fence around the perimeter of the site would not impact the public because the site is not visible from a public road or accessible by the public. We also urge the Council to not to support a moratorium on data center development. A moratorium would significantly delay and quite possibly derail the project. Moreover, a moratorium is not necessary because the unique characteristics of the Dickerson site and Atmosphere's design of the project already mitigate community impacts. In particular, we note the site is zoned heavy industrial. It is adjacent to or close to multiple industrial uses and energy infrastructure, including First Energy's transmission lines that will serve the project. The proposed buildings will be thousands of feet away from the closest house. The project uses existing infrastructure for the cooling system and will draw hundreds of millions of gallons less water daily than the coal plant. no potable water will be used for cooling, and the projects will meet the setback, noise standards, and landscape standards proposed in the ZTA. Further, imposing a moratorium would be unfair given the deliberate and thoughtful way the stakeholders in the project have pursued approvals under existing county rules. The owner of the site obtained initial conditional use approval for a data center in 2024. That approval remains in effect. Immediately after the initial approval, Atmosphere began to prepare a conditional use amendment application for the specific design and layout it is proposing for the campus. Atmosphere filed the amendment application with Park and Planning in early December of 2025. The application builds on the 2024 approval and complies with all the conditions of that approval. The project team has responded to initial comments on the application, and we hope to have a hearing date before the end of the summer. Given the advanced status of the pending conditional use application and the unique features of the site and project design that already mitigate community impacts, a moratorium to stop this project is not appropriate or necessary. Atmosphere looks forward to working with the Council to enact reasonable, objective standards for data center development that ensure this critical digital infrastructure is constructed and operated in a manner that is not harmful to the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Richard Toms. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Richard Toms, and I've been a resident on a small farm in Dickerson where our family, our cattle, sheep, peaches, and apples have all relied on the purity of the Piedmont sole source aquifer for over 52 years. My professional background includes a degree in mechanical engineering plus 36 years involved in the design and implementation of industrial cooling systems. During the last 10 years prior to retirement, I worked with a division of General Electric on their hyperscale data center projects, including work for PSINet, General Electric, Disney, and others. Your proposed ZTA 2601 includes a requirement for an engineering analysis to prove that ongoing operations will comply with the county noise ordinance. To be useful, this same requirement must apply to both the ongoing and the backup systems operations. To calculate a meaningful noise estimate, the stipulated analysis requires detailed system design information. To my knowledge, no such information has been provided for the Dickerson application. The drinking water risks that we face from the proposed Dickerson facility are numerous and should be addressed in the ZTA, not later by MDE after the fact. These can be addressed using the same language already included in the proposed ZTA 2601. One example of the risks to drinking water is the following. The closed-loop chill water pipes for the server racks are typically filled with antifreeze, likely ethylene glycol, that's the poisonous kind, or rather than propylene glycol, the safer kind. To put this in perspective, each data center of 5 could likely be filled by multiple tanker trucks full of this toxic solution of glycol and rust inhibitors. In Dickerson, that solution would be located directly above the Piedmont sole source aquifer and upstream of the WSSC intake on the Potomac River. The consequences of a pipe burst at this facility, like the recent WSSC sewer line break, would be catastrophic and would render the aquifer and potentially the Potomac River for years poisoned and useless as a drinking water source for Maryland, D.C., and Virginia. The liability for permitting such a risk to the shared drinking water supply could be enormous. Lastly, the ZTA needs enforcement provisions. This rush to approve data center siting appears to be an attempt for developers to avoid pending regulations and an attempt at a quick fix for political and government budget issues. I believe a pause is essential in order to grapple with the technical issues, ensure protection of our limited resources, and to develop a coordinated and workable and effective ZTA. We should not allow the push for Bitcoin mining and AI training to preclude effective governance. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Next, Bob Cecil.
Thank you. Madam President, Vice President, distinguished council members, I appreciate the opportunity to speak here today on behalf of Montgomery Agricultural Producers, commonly referred to as MAP. We are a nonprofit organization that represents farming in the agricultural reserve and outside the agricultural reserve. Our members farm about 24,000 acres. Montgomery Agricultural Producers supports ZTA 2601 as it's written. Establishing clear zoning standards for future data centers is essential to prevent challenges experienced in other Maryland and Virginia jurisdictions. This proposal is a solid step toward avoiding these issues. However, we remain concerned about the broader impacts of the agricultural community and the agricultural reserve, rising energy costs, partly driven by growing infrastructure demands to support data centers, place added strain on ag producers and consumers alike. We urge the Council to examine this issue further at the committee level. We also emphasize the need to preserve the agricultural reserve for future commercial encroachment. Protecting farmland remains our top priority and to ensure a sustainable future for agriculture in Montgomery County. With these considerations, we respectfully request a favorable report on ZTA 2601. Just keep in mind that we realize that in committee there's going to be amendments to this bill as it moves forward, as ZTA as it moves forward. We know you guys are going to do your due diligence, and we make ourselves available, as always, to assist the committee or the council in any issues revolving around agriculture. Thank you for your time, for my time.
Thank you, and we know how to find you. Next, we have Link Howing.
Hi, I'm Link Hoeing speaking on my own behalf today. I worked for almost 30 years in the tech industry and have been in data centers many times over the years, although admittedly a decade back when I retired. We all need and use modern internet and communications technologies extensive in our daily lives. Industries that are vital to our county's growth do as well, including farms that use communications and internet technology for everything from GPS-guided planting to managing farm operations. Data centers do have potentially significant impacts on the environment and on power demand. During the construction phase, they can put pressure on local transportation infrastructure and on emergency services. They also generate significant tax revenues and are important to communications. So how do we take the advantages of the potential benefits of data centers while mitigating or offsetting their potential harms? I propose 3 ideas. Requiring a data center to pay a community impact fee to address local infrastructure strain and bolster the local community with other investments and improvements in local facilities is valid. This is especially appropriate since our area has suffered a lot from the county locating various intrusive facilities away from populated areas, the most egregious example being the incinerator. While lots of tax revenue will be generated by data centers, we've also seen for years how the taxes from our area have seldom been returned equitably in the form of investments in needed facilities, programming, and services. One estimate is that approximately $39 million each year in county property taxes alone goes into county coffers just from the 5 zip codes in the Western County. This idea could help redress that inequity. In the tech sector, technologies advance rapidly. This is true of cooling technologies for data centers, for example, which now use less water than in the past. To ensure data centers continue to become ever more efficient and less polluting, some jurisdictions negotiate mandates requiring, quote, best in class or most advanced technologies for cooling and backup power, among other things. This does not just cover the installation process, but also applies over time as technology advances. To help make this process work, the county IT office should develop an annual report about trends in industry and new technology that should be considered. Data center companies should also explain why they are not adopting new and better technologies and how they plan to do so in the future. Finally, the rapid advancement of technology requires frequent hardware upgrades, leading to large amounts of electronic waste, which, if not properly disposed of, contributes to environmental pollution. A plan for the proper disposal of outdated technology waste should be approved for data centers, updated each year, and monitored closely. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Gary McGee here? No? Okay, we're going to proceed with Ms. Kelly Schultz.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Madam President, Madam Vice President, members of the council. My name is Kelly Schultz, and I am the CEO of the Maryland Tech Council. I just want to start out by saying that the Maryland Tech Council does represent over 850 businesses in the tech community, and this past year, in 2025, we created, under our umbrella, the Data Center Alliance. We created a steering committee with almost 20 members of that steering committee made up of community members, elected officials, academia, and subject matter experts that we have been working routinely to be able to educate community members and elected officials on the facts, the fiction, the pros, the cons of data centers. So we are here for you at any period of time that you need some additional resources. Data centers are a long lead time. So we are here in support of ZTA 2601. That long lead time leads to capital investment projects that are planned years in advance and require coordinated infrastructure. Clear zoning rules reduce uncertainty for residents and for responsible investment. ZTA 2601 takes a practical step by defining data centers as a distinct use, identifying where they may locate through a conditional use pathway, and establishing minimum standards that make the review process more predictable. ZTA 2601 modernizes the county's zoning framework for a rapidly evolving form of critical digital infrastructure by aligning expectations with contemporary design and operating practices. It adds an additional setback when a site abuts residential zones, requires screening and lighting measures that reduce visual impacts and protect wildlife, requires a professional noise analysis and ongoing compliance with the county's noise ordinance, and requires modern low-emission backup generators that meet Tier 4 or equivalent standards. That is a balanced approach. Clear expectations paired with clear mitigation requirements. From an economic standpoint, data centers bring real workforce opportunity, especially in construction and the skilled trades. That translates into demand for electricians, equipment operators, HVAC and control technicians, and other skilled trades. Over the life of a facility, there is also sustained demand for critical facilities operations, security, and network support. Finally, data centers can strengthen the commercial tax base in a way that helps fund core services. In Loudoun County, for example, the county reports receiving about $26 in tax revenue for every $1 in public services it provides to the data centers. In Maryland, an MTC commissioned analysis for Prince George's County estimated that a mid-sized data center could generate about $1 billion in economic activity and roughly $20 million in annual county revenue. With all of these facts and those that I submitted in written testimony, we urge the council to support ZTA 2601. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. The next three speakers are virtual. We're going to start with Mr. Doug Lecklider. Is he? Oh, Lecklider. Is he on?
Yes.
Can you please start? We hear you. We don't see you, but we hear you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Council President Gonzalez and all council members for your consideration of my remarks. My name is Doug Lecklider. I'm a farmer, and I'm Montgomery County Farm Bureau President. Montgomery County Farm Bureau supports ZTA 2601 with amendments. We agree, as it is written in the memorandum from Council President Gonzalez, Vice President Balcombe, and Councilmember Sales, that this ZTA is a good first step. Montgomery County Farm Bureau agrees there is a need for data centers and agrees with the requirement that they be a conditional use only allowed in industrial zones. Maryland Farm Bureau and Montgomery County Farm Bureau have a policy on data centers that was new in 2026. That is to be used to guide our organization's advocacy and legislative agenda. The policies in that book that are relevant to this issue are the following. Infrastructure must be in place before a data center is considered for development. The second one is require the use of recycled water for cooling. Now, what does that mean? It means please be careful, give careful consideration to the effect these sites will have on energy use, energy cost, energy availability, and reliability. Not only energy, but water. And not only water use, but the disposal of that water. We all know what a concern energy and water are. These two items affect everyone's quality of life and as a basic need. In closing, I thank you again and reiterate that Montgomery County Farm Bureau can support ZTA 2601 with a few careful amendments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, Ms. Caroline Taylor.
Working to start my, oh, there we go. Okay, hold on. All right. For the record, I'm Caroline Taylor on behalf of Montgomery Countryside Alliance. We support the careful, collaborative, transparent crafting of this ZTA and its operational guidelines. And while we're fulfilling this task, we ask the county to implement a pause in permitting projects. To the specifics thus far, the ZTA calls for conditional use. Yes. Only in industrial zones. Yes, with the caveat that we have to look at scale, and the hyperscale should be in heavy zones, heavy industrial. And yes, we discuss fence colors and tree buffers, yada, yada. But externalities that have been left out give rise to significant concerns and beg further attention. Here's what we're hearing. Potential tax revenue seems pretty sexy. Thus far, county decision makers have been relying on industry representations. Please conduct an independent cost-benefit analysis. Let's say for every $10 the county collects in tax revenue, county ratepayers pay $20. That's an uncomfortable arrangement for the public. It's already exceedingly uncomfortable for ratepayers, especially the most vulnerable community members. Somebody else will handle that. It's been suggested that issues related to water and the impact on electrical utilities and ratepayers are not the purview of the council, but it is the council's job to establish the adequate public facilities provisions and standards for the use that will guide the review process. The planning board recommended the council consider adding standards related to energy efficiency and water use. We agree. The proposed hyperscale facility in Dickerson has proffered that they will employ, at their first ever project, the greenest water and energy use systems. We've asked for more information on these systems and have been told they are subject to non-disclosure agreements. This has felt more like strategic ambiguity. The ZTA should require these green things, similar to the ZTA's requirement regarding analysis of a project's noise abatement technology. The applicant should be required to present analysis of their cooling and energy systems technology that must meet high standards and protect shared resources and support our climate change goals. Shouldn't we be concerned with externalities? The county is evaluating adding this use in our zoning code at a time when infrastructure that it heavily relies upon has become increasingly vulnerable. Both ICPRB and WSSC have forecast big challenges for our regional water supply to meet near-term demand. Alternatives are being explored. And our sole source aquifer, that should be entirely off the table for data center cooling needs. Grid operator PJM warns that electrical demands driven in large measure by hyperscale data center proliferation may result in brownouts. We appreciate this as a starting point, and we look forward to crafting a good ZTA.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. The last speaker who registered is not online, which means this public hearing is now closed. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to move on to item number 6 on the agenda. It's a public hearing on a resolution to approve supplemental appropriation number 26-25 to the FY26 operating budget, Montgomery County Government, Department of Health and Human Services for $2,200,000, Department of Technology and Enterprise Business Solutions for $800,000, Community Connect, Portland Continued Development, source of funds, general fund, undesignated reserves. A joint Government Operations and Fiscal Policy and Health and Human Services Committee work session will be scheduled for a later date. Those wishing to submit material for the Council's consideration should do so by the close of business on March 5th, 2026. There are no registered speakers for this hearing. This public hearing is now closed. Item number 7 is a public hearing on Bill 1-26, Human Rights and Civil Liberties County Minimum Wage Actual Impact Analysis Amendments. That's my bill. This bill will remove the requirement that the Office of Legislative Oversight provide an annual report regarding the implementation of the county minimum wage and the local economy, and generally amend the law regarding county minimum wage. A joint Economic Development and Health and Human Services Committee work session is scheduled for March 19, 2026. Those wishing to submit material for the council's consideration should do so by the close of business on March 5th, 2026. As a reminder of our public hearing testimony guidelines, your comments must be limited to issues relevant to the public hearing topic for which you are testifying and are appropriate for a public hearing. You will hear a tone when your time is up, and we appreciate everyone abiding by the allotted time. You have 3 minutes, and the only person registered is Mr. Dhruva Diego Kumar. Sir, if you can please come forward. Hello. You have 3 minutes to speak. Okay, as soon as you set up. Okay, 3 minutes, we'll start right now. Go ahead, sir.
Is this on?
You had to turn on the mic.
You know, last time y'all had given the instructions on this. But okay, I'm going to read through this super fast.
Go ahead.
All right. Where's the clock? Right there. Montgomery County, Maryland Council. Now, please note my home country, India, given name by my parents is Dhruva Kumar, DK. All this detail very important. Upon citizenship about 3 decades ago, I added the middle name Diego, so my home nation, United States of America, the legal name is Dhruva Diego Kumar. A lot of meaning for me. Diego was my nickname in my Spanish classes and known as such in those classes only, etc. But it's time to move on. No more Diego, die, go. I'm here. I don't want to Diego, die, go anywhere. And also because I've endured so much religious, ethnic, and jealous hate by the Latin American, Central American, illegal, undocumented community, I need to safety distance myself from them more. So I'm now in the process of changing my name to James Dhruva Kumar, and I'm requesting people to call me James or JD Kumar. You all can still call me Dhruva or Drew also. Now, please note that I recently filed for political office as JD Kumar for United States Congress, House of Representatives for this District 8, Montgomery County, Maryland. I'll be one of the best reps ever. I'm Explainer-in-Chief, EIC. I coined the term EIMC and recently discussed this during the Trust Act meeting in January 2026. Establish immigrant-migrant communities, which I have improved to establish immigrant merit communities. A salute to Montgomery County, Maryland, also a refugee protection location for decades. I know all subject matters at a detailed granular level, not humble on this. I will bring billions of dollars to this county, at least $20 billion. I want all your endorsements, including those who do not like me or agree with me, 100%, 1,000%. My social media accounts handle
This is not a campaign forum.
No,
you
absolutely.
cannot campaign here.
No, absolutely. But I have to
Please.
give you this background, okay?
No, but you cannot campaign in this
Okay, I got it. Let's
chamber.
move on. Okay, now I have to start by stating or asking why you never have just a general open community forum here in this venue room or meetings for other general community subject issues. It seems like you only use this venue for proposed bills, policies, and this also mostly during work hours, not evening hours. This is minimal use, so the effective square footage cost of this venue room here is probably several hundreds to millions of dollars per year. Not open democracy, not exclusive leadership use. Now, let's talk about this 1-26. It seems like you want to drop the quantitative analysis for the minimum wage. What I suggest is that you implement qualitative analysis, because that's why I started to give you the background, because we face a lot of discrimination here. And my mom and I, we're really emeritus founders of the original British American colonies. The British Empire is the major reason, British Commonwealth, for the immense wealth of USA. But now we get usurped by people from the Latin American community lot, illegals, undocumented background, who I call EIMC. So really, you got to adopt qualitative issues to replace. And this is one of the things I read about RE. What is that group called?
Sir, I'm sorry, your time is up. Thank you so
Sure.
much for your time, and you can submit the rest of your testimony.
Okay, just want to say RESG says they don't have data. But
Okay.
you got to do qualitative data. Qualitative.
Next, we're going to
And
move
you got
on
to issue credentials.
to item number 8. It's a public hearing bill 2-26, taxation, fuel, energy tax, Green Bank amendments. This is a public hearing. Man, I lost my train of thought. Okay. This bill will allow the Montgomery County Green Bank to use revenue received from the fuel energy tax toward resiliency activities and generally amend the law regarding the fuel energy tax. A Transportation and Environment Committee work session is scheduled for March 9, 2026. Those wishing to submit material for the Council's consideration should do so by the close of business on March 2nd, 2026. As a reminder of our public hearing testimony guidelines, your comments must be limited to issues relevant to public hearing topic for which you are testifying and are appropriate for a public meeting. You will hear a tone where your time is up, and we appreciate everyone abiding by their allotted time. We're gonna call on everybody who's here for this. Stephen Morrell, Kevin Walton, Laura Mondragon, Tom Farwar, and Alex Stavitsky Seinadi. And you'll have 3 minutes. Let's please start with our friends from Montgomery County Green Bank. Mr. Stephen, go ahead.
Great, thank you kindly. Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of Bill 2-26. My name is Stephen Morrell. I serve as the CEO of the Montgomery County Green Bank, the subject of the proposed legislation. Before jumping in further, on a personal note, I'm proud to say that my wife and I recently welcomed into the world our first child, a beautiful baby girl. So, in addition to thinking about when I once again may sleep, I think a lot about the world that she will grow up in. Not as an abstract future, but as a community already feeling the effects of our changing climate. Ensuring that she and her peers inherit a healthy, equitable, and resilient Montgomery County isn't just a professional goal, it's a personal one. And I believe this legislation is a critical tool to get there. We already know that climate risk is not a future projection, it is a present reality. Across Montgomery County, we are experiencing heavier rainfall, more frequent flooding, longer and more intense heat events, and increasing strain on both natural and built infrastructure. These are impacts that affect the health of residents, the viability of businesses, and the resilience of our communities as a whole. That is a significant reason why the Montgomery County Green Bank developed Protecting the Path to Net Zero, a resilience and adaptation strategy that couples technical assistance with market-ready financing to catalyze private sector investment in flood mitigation, heat resilience, water management, energy reliability, and other risk-reducing upgrades. Critically, this approach reflects an important shift from reacting to adverse weather impacts after they occur to investing in a stronger, safer, and more resilient community before disaster strikes. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Allstate, and the Chamber Foundation recently published that underinvestment in resilience can cost communities up to $33 for every dollar not spent on proactive resilience and adaptation measures. That brings us to the bill. The fuel energy tax revenue that the Green Bank already receives is tied directly to carbon-intensive energy use, the very same activity that drives both emissions and physical climate impacts. Allowing these funds to support resilience and adaptation work is not an expansion of spending, but a logical and fiscally responsible alignment of revenue and risk reduction. It enables Montgomery County to invest earlier, more equitably, and more effectively, protecting homes, businesses, farms, and infrastructure before damage occurs and reducing long-term fiscal risk. I am pleased that the Council will hear and read in testimony from my colleagues, Green Bank partners, and Green Bank customers on more details of our strategy and the positive effects of our interventions, and we are pleased to make ourselves available for the work session. But mostly, I'm incredibly pleased to be part of such a forward-thinking and leading county that not only agrees on the importance of these issues, but coalesces around innovative solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Kevin Walton.
My name is Kevin Walton, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Climate Coalition of Montgomery County. I appreciate this opportunity to testify in Bill 226, allowing Montgomery County Green Bank to use their fuel energy tax funds for resilience. I also want to thank the 7 members of the council who are sponsoring or co-sponsoring this bill. That is a lot of council support, which is gratifying, as this is a common sense addition to how the Green Bank can do its work. Resilience plays an important part in the success of the Green Bank. They will be able to screen every clean energy deal for resilience adaptation opportunities. They will be able to proactively propose risk reduction actions and provide resilience technical advice. This resilience work will be supported by the Green Bank's 10% allocation of the fuel energy tax. These funds fuel the Green Bank's success. Over the years, the Green Bank has generated over $230 million of project investments. That's over $250 million. 75% of that came from private sector investments that otherwise would not have been made. The Green Bank leverages its funds with a return of 3 to 1. In the coming year, they expect a return of 5 to 1 and a return of 8 to 1 by fiscal year 28, or else you see such an excellent return on investment. Yet the county's budgets for the last several years, the Green Bank was not fully allocated its 10% from the fuel energy tax. With the return on investment, every dollar cut is really $3 lost in county investment, and in the years to come, that'll be $5 lost. Bill 226 enables an additional key part of the Green Bank's effectiveness in helping the county meet the challenge of climate change. But if the funds to the Green Bank are curtailed below the full 10% allocation of the fuel energy tax, this bill could not fully deliver on its promise. And cuts to the fuel energy tax allocation also shortchanges the business community. Last year, this council passed regulations for the Building Energy Performance Standards, BEPS. It was one of the high points of 2025, and the Climate Coalition really appreciates your support for that bill. This vote was supported by council expectations to help the business community via Green Bank funding. This was essentially a promise to the business community to help by the council. It was expected the monies would come from the Federal Greenhouse Reduction Fund, would play a central role here, but of course we know those monies are not coming. So now the primary way for the Green Bank to partner with businesses is to help them meet the BEPS goals is via the fuel energy tax funding. So in conclusion, the Climate Coalition strongly supports Bill 226. Buildings not only need to become energy efficient and eliminate greenhouse gas emissions, they must be resilient to the challenges that are already here and growing due to climate change. And to make sure this bill has real substance, we also urge the full funding of the 10% allocation of the fuel energy tax to the Green Bank in the fiscal year 27 budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, Laura Mondragon.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Laura Mondragon, and I serve as Senior Director of Climate Resilience and Adaptation at the Montgomery County Green Bank. In 2023, the county expanded the Green Bank's authority to include physical climate resilience. In response, we developed Protected a Path to Net Zero, or PPNC, a comprehensive resilience and adaptation strategy that combines technical assistance, market-ready financing, and measurable risk reduction. At the center of this strategy is the Resilience Dedicated Fund, a low-cost revolving financing facility designed to help affordable housing developers and mission-driven property owners address climate risks before damage occurs, while keeping housing stable and affordable. Through this fund, borrowers can finance flood mitigation, heat resilience, water management, and energy reliability improvements alongside capital needs. Importantly, every investment is paired with resilience technical advice to ensure projects are scoped correctly and deliver real risk reduction. Under this framework, we are pleased to highlight the Victory Housing Resilience Dedicated Fund, a $5 million revolving facility supporting resilience, energy efficiency, water conservation, and sustainability upgrades across Victory Housing affordable housing portfolio. Importantly, the Resilience Dedicated Fund has been designed not as one-off program, but as a scalable financing model. Bill 226 provides a stable local funding source that can serve as anchor capital, allowing Green Bank to expand the fund's capacity, attract private and philanthropic co-investment, and deploy resilience investment efficiently and at a scale. Our existing resilience work has positioned Montgomery County as a national leader in resilience finance. By pairing local public capital with disciplined underwriting and impact measurement, our offerings demonstrate how local governments can move from grant-dependent responses to durable investment-driven solutions that can be replicated by other counties and states. PPNC also recognizes that farmers are on the front lines of climate adaptation. Through our Climate Smart Agriculture pilot, the Green Bank has deployed capital to accelerate local farmers' adoption of practices that reduce vulnerability to flooding, drought, and extreme heat, while lowering farm-on emissions and improving soil and water management. Across Montgomery County, the agricultural community is already adapting to climate change, but these efforts remain largely unsupported by dedicated financing. farmers are implementing climate-smart resilient practices at their own risk, without access to capital that compensates them for the ecosystem services and community support their work provides. Bill 226 unlocks a stable local funding source while remaining budget neutral that allows the county to anchor and scale NCGB resilience efforts.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Tom Farwar.
Good afternoon.
Please turn on your, there.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Tom Farquhar, the farmer at Sandy Spring Gardens. We grow vegetables in Ashton, Maryland. Our primary markets are the food assistance programs of Montgomery County, Manna Food Center, Community Farm Share, and other small food pantries and soup kitchens. We received a grant from the Green Bank in 2025 under their Climate Smart Farming program. I was able to purchase a no-till drill, which allows me to plant cover crops after the harvest is over in the fall. That stabilizes the soil. The cover crops got good germination. You're probably aware we're in a severe drought in Montgomery County. The drought began on August 1st. So cover crops had to be planted at a very dry time. It's very dicey in terms of whether the cover crop will germinate if you're putting it in dry soil. The drill allows the seed to be planted in the soil rather than be simply broadcast on the surface. Much better germination. I got very good stand on all the cover crop. Cover crop is a climate adaptation for farmers because it protects the soil from flooding rain. But it also adds organic matter to the soil, which increases the soil's capacity to hold moisture. So it adds drought resilience to the soil. Cover cropping, a very important climate-smart agricultural practice now, and we were helped and supported by the Green Bank in doing this. Cover crops are also a climate mitigation strategy. Cover crops introduce a tremendous amount of organic matter into the soil. Organic matter in the soil is carbon in the soil, and carbon in the soil is carbon dioxide that's not in the air. If carbon were introduced into the soil more aggressively worldwide, we could solve easily half of the problem of climate causing changing gases in the atmosphere. So we appreciate the Green Bank's support. We believe the Green Bank authority should be broadened to allow them not only to mitigate climate, but also to allow us operators to adapt to climate change, which is here and now for us farmers in Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you. The last person is Ms. Alex Stavitsky. Seinerin? No. Yes?
Very good. Thank you. Sorry, that's a long last name. Yes. So thank you very much. My name is Alex Stavitsky Zynedin, and I'm representing the Montgomery County Sierra Club. The Sierra Club and its members appreciate your considering environmental concerns in considering Bill 2-26, which would allow the Montgomery County Green Bank to expand its investments to include more climate resiliency projects. Although we value in potentially broadening the Green Bank's investments to include resiliency projects, we have concerns because the combination of A, persistent Green Bank underfunding, and B, the potentially spreading of Green Bank financing across a broad swath of projects could inadvertently lead to decreased investment for renewable energy and energy efficiency initiatives. We hope the legislation can be improved to the benefit of both renewable energy efficient projects and resiliency initiatives. Current law mandates that 10% of the revenue received by the county from the fuel energy tax must be appropriated to each year to the Montgomery County Green Bank. Even though that hasn't been maintained, the Green Bank has nevertheless helped generate hundreds of millions of dollars of project investments, the majority of which were from the private sector. As planned, investments made in and by the Green Bank have had a positive multiplier effect. That was a good theoretical start, and the Green Bank's existing work does finance important renewable energy and energy efficiency initiatives. With more resources, it could do even more. But precisely because this is revenue neutral, this bill does not actually help raise revenue, either public or private, for environmental causes. We support resiliency projects, including increasing drainage capacity, protecting electrical systems in buildings, increasing tree canopy cover, adding early flood warning systems, and creating green infrastructure to better capture stormwater, as the bill's proponents suggest. This bill already has many proponents, including co-sponsors Councilmember Glass, Friedson, and Lutke, and co-sponsors Balcom, Joando, Stewart, Katz, and Evans. It seems likely to pass, but it would be even better if increasing the bank funding, and B, including provisions to measure its effects to ensure that it doesn't inadvertently spread the butter too thin by potentially robbing renewable energy and energy efficiency projects to fund important resiliency projects. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. This public hearing is now closed. Thank you for coming. Next, agenda item 9 is a public hearing on Bill 6-26, Fire and Rescue Services, Emergency Medical Services Insurance Reimbursement Program, Use of Revenues. This bill will permit the authorized local fire and rescue department representative to receive revenues collected under the Emergency Medical Services Insurance Reimbursement Program under certain circumstances, specify certain permitted uses of the revenues, and generally amend the laws regarding emergency medical services in the county. A Public Safety Committee work session is scheduled for March 9, 2026. Those wishing to submit material for the Council's consideration should do so by the close of business on March 2nd, 2026. As a reminder of our public hearing testimony guidelines, your comments must be limited to issues relevant to the public hearing topic for which you are testifying and are appropriate for a public meeting. You will hear a tone when your time is up, and we appreciate everyone abiding by their allotted time. We have one person testifying today. You have 3 minutes, sir. Please, Russell Harun, please introduce
Thank you
yourself.
very much. Good afternoon, Council President and members of the Council. My name is Russell Hartung, and I'm the president of the Montgomery County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association, and I'm here today as an authorized representative of the county's 19 local fire and rescue departments. First, thank you to Council Member Lukey, Katz, and Mink introducing this legislation, and to Council President Fanny Gonzalez and the co-sponsors for their support. Montgomery County's volunteer fire and rescue system did not start as a line item. It started as neighbors grabbing buckets and showing up. As the county grew, the volunteer companies organized, and the county created coordination structures so we could operate as a system, not as 19 isolated islands. The MCVFRA exists for that same reason, to coordinate, standardize, and represent the LFRDs so county government can work with one accountable entity when that makes operational sense. Expedited Bill 6-26 is a targeted clarification county law that requires that 15% of the net EMST reimbursement revenue be allocated annually for the benefit of the local fire and rescue departments. The Office of the Inspector General identified that because the MCVFRA is not itself defined as an LFRD, direct distribution to the authorized representative was inconsistent with the code as written. This bill addresses that ambiguity. It does not expand eligible uses. It does not change the 15% allocation. It does not weaken the oversight. It simply clarifies that annual budget resolution may authorize distribution either to an individual LFRD or to the authorized representative, with contracts and a defined public safety purpose governing those funds. Those purposes remain tightly defined: apparatus, facilities, volunteer training, gear and equipment, recruitment and retention, and administrative support directly tied to emergency services. If the Council determines that certain shared system-wide functions should be supported centrally, the code should clearly authorize that structure with accountability. This bill provides that clarity. We respectfully urge support for the expedited Bill 6-26. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have some.
No questions, but thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
This public hearing is now closed. Agenda item 10 is a public hearing on the Planning Board draft amendment to the Master Plan for Historic Preservation for the Rosebud House. A Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee work session scheduled for March 16, 2026. Those wishing to submit material for the Council's consideration should do so by the close of business on March 5th, 2026. There are no registered speakers for this hearing, and we had a lovely session this morning about this. If you missed it, you can go back and watch it. This public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the final item. Agenda item 11 is a public hearing and action on a resolution to approve an amendment to the FY25-30 Capital Improvements Program, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, North Branch Trail Project, and a special appropriation to the FY26 capital budget, MNCPPC, North Branch Trail, for $2.9 million. Source of funds, $900,000 GO bonds, and $2 million from federal aid. I don't say that too often, but thank you. Council action is scheduled immediately following this hearing. There are no speakers for this hearing. I see the Parks Department here. I don't think they need to come testify unless one of you wants them. No? Okay. This public hearing is now closed. We will now move on the action portion of this item. So is there a motion to approve this resolution and a special appropriation?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Lukey, second by Councilmember Stewart. Those in favor, please raise your hand. It is unanimous for those who are here today. And with that, my friends, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.